Leroy.
What's up, fellas?
How you
What's
feeling?
happening?
I'm looking up a little bit because I dropped my computer, and so I had to hook my computer up to a screen, and so the screen is above. Oh man, it was brutal. But yeah, I heard what you guys were talking about. Man, like I don't understand, and this only happens in sports, right? That regardless of what happens to you criminally, the league still feels like the law wasn't good enough. We have to come in and determine your fate. And I don't know how much of a problem I have with it. I don't know how I should feel about it, but you live by these rules of people just sitting in a room saying, that doesn't look right. I think we need to do something, even if he's innocent or not. And I don't know how to feel about that. So when you say, hey, these charges got thrown out for whatever reason, I don't know what the reasons are, right? Then he goes, but now he has to go through the league. And I'm like, that always worries me because the league is going to get a feel for how people are viewing the situation and not necessarily what he did or didn't do.
So Leroy, is that something that like the next time that the NFLPA and the NFL do a collective bargaining agreement, is that something that players should really have the people that's in charge kind of take a look at? Because I tend to agree with you as far as not knowing how to feel about it, right? Because when we got a legal system in this country, and if the legal system deemed that you have not done anything wrong, and then your employer tries to act like they're above the law, I can understand how that makes people uneasy.
Well, it doesn't make people uneasy. It's only unfair for the player. But for people, they always think, and here's what drives me crazy about the world we live in, right? If you're found innocent and people think you're guilty, they'll say you got away with it. And so now they're looking for the league, don't let him get away with this. You see what I mean? Like at no point, if you get accused of something, charged with something, or whatever, whether you're guilty or innocent, right? You got to deal with all of these situations and circumstances. Now, again, I don't know how much of this situation is where the NFL comes in and says, no, you might not have been charged, but we did something and something happened here. Like, I don't know how much of that is, but it seems like they seem to be getting more evidence than the actual law. So I don't know how to feel about it. I would say this is that as far as whether he's going to be in shape, no, he's not going to be in shape because there's a couple of things you got to go through as a running back. And I like him, and I think he's going to be, for what the Browns do at that position, he's going to fit right in. But there's certain things you got to go through during camp. I had to have like maybe 10, 15 carries in the preseason so I know how to fall. I knew how to protect the ball. I knew how to get hit. I knew how to prepare to get hit. I knew how to fall to the ground. And if you don't ever experience these things and the first time you do is during the regular season, like you're going from 0 to 100. So there's certain things he's going to have to go through.
I want to go back to what you were talking about with the personal conduct policy because I think that's fascinating. But real quick, how long? Because you just said it. There's no way he's going to be in shape. He's already missed all training camp and all preseason, and he's a rookie, so he's never gone through this before. So how long do you think? Say he magically signs today, and he's not going to. How long you think it will take him before you can put him out on the field?
I'm gonna tell you how this works, right? You ever been in a fight and you thought you was just playing and you was just slap fighting and then your boy punch you in the mouth and you're like, oh, and then you wake up, right? That's about how it goes. You think in your mind, you understand how this football is going to be played and you anticipate what it's going to feel like, and then you actually get hit, and you're like, oh, no, whoa. So that's about how it's going to go.
I want to go back to what you said because it's a great point. This personal conduct policy was adopted basically in response to Ray Rice, right?
Correct.
Because so the NFL was catching all sorts of heat from the public, from the media on the handling of Ray Rice. They had to come up with something. This is what they came up with. Mm-hmm. I do think that there's a difference in your life on the line, jail time, something on your record, and hey, it's a privilege to play in the NFL. You're going to sit 4 or 5 games because something happened.
Agreed.
So it's not, and I'll go back to like Deshaun. Do you think Deshaun should have been, do you think Deshaun did anything wrong, and should Deshaun face any sort of punishment from the NFL because the court system said there's not enough here for us to do anything about it?
Different situation. A lot of the reason why Deshaun didn't have to do a lot of that stuff because he settled, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens is in a lot of these court deals is if you settle, then those people don't testify, right? Or sometimes they testify in order to get a civil suit. So there was a lot of other stuff going on there. I don't know if this is that situation. I don't know if there's, hey, we went and talked to, the person involved in the situation and worked out a settlement, and they decided that we're just going to drop the case or we're not going to testify because then the courts don't have, somebody to question about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. But the other thing with Deshaun is that it wasn't just one person.
Right.
You see what I mean? And here's what I would say. One of the reasons why I get so nervous about these situations is because if somebody knows you have money and somebody knows what your situation is, and if somebody wants to get back at you, they can file a charge.
Yep.
And so if the court says nothing's there, you just wanted to get, you wanted to get back at this person for whatever reason, right?
Yep.
And is the NFL then coming over the top and say, oh well, if they filed if they went to court with it or they filed charges, then something must have been there, and then you get penalized. And I think of this. You remember the case at Duke? Was it Duke?
Duke lacrosse 20
lacrosse team.
13.
They got kicked out of school.
Yep.
They got banned. They got all this, and then 5 months later, the girl said, "I made it up."
Yeah. How
do you like? You did everything to make it look good, but you didn't do what was right.
And I think
that's where I believe in the court system. Right? I think everybody should get a fair shake at it. But at the same time, you don't know what the other person's motives are.
And I think that's why the NFL does investigate these, because the Mike Hall case, I was in the courtroom because it happened literally around the corner from my house where
right.
his hearing was. So I went. And it was clear something happened. And it may not, and his girlfriend didn't want to pursue the case or everything, and even the judge was sitting up there like, all right, well, here's the path that we're going to go, then here's the path we have to go, but something happened. So I do think that there's a place for the policy, but I'm with you on it would be nice to get a little bit more transparency on why they find what they find or why they come to the decisions that they come to. It just came out during the show, Rashee Rice is going to get 6 games. I think I read that right. 6 games for
right.
Rashee
Yes.
Rice.
But that's a whole nother different situation.
Yes.
We all know what happened there.
Yes.
You see what I mean? There's all kinds of stuff going on there. And so, yeah, I understand that. I understand that as an athlete, you have to be careful with what circumstances and situations you put yourself in. And clearly Rashee Rice, that was reckless. That was reckless. Okay? And that can't happen. And there's evidence, there's proof, there's whatever. Right? And you may be able to buy yourself out of serious court or serious jail time or whatever. But you still have to deal with the NFL because there's evidence. But when it gets to the evidence of he said, she said, this is what happened, you know, like that becomes a little more difficult to determine what actually happened.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, let's talk some on the field here as the Browns announced their, the roster cuts and the 53-man roster. We see that. They end up trading Kenny Pickett, which was a surprise late to Las Vegas for a fifth-round pick.
Was it? Were you shocked?
I was surprised what they got.
They got something. Were you shocked?
They got the same asset back that they traded for him, which that never happens. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And he didn't play for the Browns, is my point. Anyway,
right.
Neither here nor there. The question I have for you is, are you surprised that the Browns have Joe Flacco starting with two rookies behind him, two rookie backups?
No. No, why? This you got to start somewhere, right? If Kevin Stefanski can develop talent, stop trying to develop old people. Get them young, right? This has to start somewhere. And for so many years, you brought in a veteran and said, okay, this is what Kevin Stefanski can do. And now he has young players, and they've tried to bring young players in before, but it was young players that we didn't think highly of and needed a lot of development. And they were thrust into situations that did not help their development, I might add. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't Kevin Stefanski's fault. That's just football when, for some reason, the Browns always get 5 quarterbacks hurt a year, right? It happens. I can't explain it, but a lot of young guys who were supposed to be developing have been thrust into situations with the Browns that maybe they weren't ready for, and then we view those guys as terrible quarterbacks. Now you have 2 young guys. You drafted one in the 3rd round, one in the 5th round, and I will say this. You've seen something out of both of them that's worthy of development. And let's just go from there. My thing is we all know Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco going to give you 4 or 5 of the greatest weeks at quarterback you've ever seen. And you're going to be pumping your fist. We're going to be go dog pound or whatever. But then what is Joe Flacco going to do?
Well,
he's done, and that's, I don't know whether it's because of his age. I don't know because but he's done it now at a couple of spots, right? He did it when he was with the Browns. He did it when he went to Indy. Like that, I don't know why, but Joe Flacco let me tell you something. Joe Flacco gonna start out playing some of the best. Him and Jameis Winston are the 2 quarterbacks that just baffle me. Because I like them both, right? I think they're talented. I think they're good leaders. I think they do a lot of things to help a football team. But then they have those weeks. Like Jameis. How great was Jameis Winston when he came into the game? Right? Oh, my goodness.
It was a fun month,
throwing dimes. Right. So I think that's the part of all of this, if you're a Browns fan, that scares the hell out of you. Because now you're going to have to use one of these young guys.
All right, Leroy. So speaking of scared, you talked about Kevin Stefanski and the development of the quarterbacks. And I think that there is a large portion of this Cleveland Browns fan base that don't necessarily trust Kevin Stefanski when it comes to that. There's also another portion of this fan base that's quite frankly ready to move on from Andrew Berry. You look at this previous draft class and you talk about Kevin, kind of being patient with the development. What do Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry need to do, or how does this season need to play out in order for you to feel comfortable with both of those men returning next year for the 2026 season?
what I would say for Andrew Berry is this. Show me that you're evaluating the talent and you're getting more talent on the field and getting some depth at a few positions that if one guy gets hurt, you're done. So maybe some depth at secondary. You brought in some linebacker help. You brought in some help up front, right? Maybe some depth at offensive line, right? Try to set up your team that if one guy gets hurt, it's not chaos and you're done, right? You're trying to do that at quarterback. I don't necessarily know when you look at the guys that were available at quarterback, you can't definitively tell me that there was somebody that you could have brought in that would have been ready to go right away, like a guy of that stature. So at quarterback, I understand what they did. They tried to, get running back. I'm a little nervous about running back because you only got two. Might be the smallest running back room I've ever seen, right? As of right now. You got Judkins. We don't know what his situation's going to be, right? So I'm worried about that, even though we've already talked about it. I'm a little nervous about that. What are you going to do? I mean, I still think they have some talent offensively. I still think they're going to be based on being aggressive, running the football, play action, stuff like that. That's right in Joe Flacco's wheelhouse, right? And you're going to be able to compete. That's what I want to see from Andrew Berry, from Kevin Stefanski. Can we just say in the last 4 years, if I make this statement, we feel differently about Kevin Stefanski? If he had a healthy quarterback, right? I mean, the chaos that has happened back there. So while I understand people get tired. They get tired. They want to move on because it's not working. I get that. But I always look at it from this standpoint. Could I have put anybody else in Kevin Stefanski's position and said, this guy would have did better than what we got with all the circumstances that had gone on? And that's a question I can't answer. And until I can answer that question, I'm going to say, you got to stick with Kevin Stefanski. Like, because if you bring another guy in, he's going to want his guys, he's going to want his system, and then you're going to have another turnaround for another 2-3 years. And people forget about that point. Like, they changed coaches really quick in Denver. But look how long it took them. It took them a couple of years. Are you ready for that? Are you prepared for that? Are you willing to say, you know what, I'm going to eat it for a couple of years? Because what happens with impatience is if a guy comes in and doesn't have success right away, you're going to say, blow it up again.
Leroy, he had a freaking pandemic 2 months after he's hired. And I'm the Kevin apologist around here, right? Like, I think he's actually pretty good. He does a pretty good job.
I do too. I agree with you.
And I think he'd have another job tomorrow if the Browns ever fired him, because there's a lot of people around the league who really respect him. But he had a freaking pandemic 2 months after he was hired. He navigated the Odell Baker wars, the Baker shoulder disaster injury, the Deshaun, it's been one calamity after another, after another, after another. And I don't want to relitigate history, but I mean, he's had a ton of stuff thrown at him that only the Browns, man. There's no other explanation other than it's just the Browns.
If I were to say I have had one issue with all of this, I would say this is where it kind of went sideways for me. I did not have a problem with what the Browns did to get Deshaun Watson. However, you were not good enough to bring in a guy for that much money and have him sit out for the first 10 games. And if I were making that decision, I don't care how good or great Deshaun Watson was, I would have not signed a quarterback that was going to sit out for the first 10 games that I was going to have to rely on.
Yeah.
And maybe the quarterback that I brought in wouldn't have been as good. But I would be willing to live with that because it's hard. It is hard. And everybody was put behind the 8 ball just based on the suspension that Deshaun Watson had to start his Browns career.
Leroy, let's flip it on the other side of the ball. When you look at those 2 rookies in Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, that's going to be out there with those veterans right away. How do you think they're going to help take the Browns defense to the next level?
Well, Mason is energy, a ball of energy, and I look at was Schlesinger. I look at him like Van Ginkel. Like he has the build of Van Ginkel that plays for the Vikings. Van Ginkel played with the Dolphins, so I'm familiar with him. He has that kind of energy that he can play, right? And you know how you know he can play? He got the green dot on his helmet already. So that means he's mature enough to get the information, relay it to his team. They respect him enough to listen to what he has to say. Right? So that's 2 additions to that defensive line. And let's keep in mind, okay, let's be clear. We all doing this on the front 7 for one guy. And that's so Myles Garrett can do what Myles Garrett does. And if you can get other players to take some of that attention off of him, then he's going to continue to do what he's been doing. If you have a front 7 that can get after the quarterback and stop the run, it takes some of the pressure off the secondary, right? And that's kind of, if there's any questions, that's where the questions are, right? In the secondary as far as depth, how you going to, approach this year when guys get banged up. But if you can solidify that front 7, you can support whatever moves you make in that secondary.
You surprised they cut their kicker after they just gave him all that guaranteed money?
I don't know. The
reason I ask is it's fascinating to me because it seems like you cut a kicker who performed poorly last year and in the preseason, and you're like, yeah, we can't win like that. Like, we need you to win. Well, that tells me that the Browns are trying to win. You know what I mean? They're trying to win games.
Yeah. Here's the problem. There are a lot of teams in the league that are working on small margins, meaning that your margin for error is not that great, right? It also means that every opportunity you get, you need to take advantage of it. And sometimes when you have a kicker that's not making field goals, it's putting you in a bad spot. And so I think they're like, hey man, we got to make we got to make some changes here. Now, I don't know why, but man, it's a lot of missed field goals, right?
A lot.
That's a lot. I man, think about this. When I was in Minnesota, we went to the NFC Championship game, and our field goal kicker missed 1 field goal all year. 1 field goal all year. And it was at the worst time of the season, and we lost the game. 1 field goal. And last year, he missed 9? Yikes. And let's keep in mind, we had this conversation down here. Can I just say this? And this is no disrespect for kickers. No disrespect to kickers. Because everybody may hate kickers, but you're going to need one. Mm-hmm. But think about this. If I pick a position on the field that's the easiest to replace, that I could go find another one, what position is that?
Kicker.
Kicker.
Leroy,
Kicker.
I get you out of here on this one. We opened up the show. We was talking about we was watching Netflix and America's Team, the Dallas Cowboys documentary. And throughout the first 6 episodes, you see some flashes of the Cleveland Browns. Now you play for the Browns and the Vikings. Give us something on Jerry Jones, your best Jerry Jones story, your best Dallas Cowboys story from that time.
Here's how. Well, when we were with the Browns, and it was the year we went to the playoffs, and we played Dallas. Remember, we beat Dallas because they came up short at the end of the game. People don't realize our bus got in a crash on the way to the stadium.
I don't remember that.
It got in a crash. Some lady ran a red light, hit the bus. So the people had to get off the first bus and get onto the second bus, and we was all sitting on top of each other going to the game. Wow. That was the start. But here's what I was saying about Jerry Jones, and keep in mind, he got one of the most expensive franchises in the world. But here's what I would say. You cannot win in the NFL if you have 5 of the highest paid players at their position and you not winning. And he waits and waits and waits until he end up paying these guys as the highest paid at their position. He did it with Dak. He's done it with CD Lamb. And now he's doing it with and if you have 3 or 4 or 5 of the highest paid players at their position, you're supposed to be winning.
And he infuriates them during negotiations every time.
Right. I'm not going to question what this man has done to make him have the most expensive franchise in the world. One of the. But I will say this. It's not a good business model if you paying the most money for so many positions and you can't even get out of the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we sitting here complaining about the Browns cutting a kicker.
I wasn't complaining. I was just asking if it tells you a story.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
Hey, Leroy, man, we appreciate you, man. Go be great. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, man. Y'all too. Y'all do it.